Hi everyone, my name is Olivia and welcome to the interviewing webinar. Once you apply to academic training opportunities, some of you may have done so already, you may hear back from the employer inviting you for an interview. And we hope that you do. So, how do you prepare? This is what we will talk about today. At the end of the webinar, you will be armed with the skills necessary to give a great interview. The interview process varies from organization to organization, but you can expect it to go a little something like this. First, you will apply to the position, and then they will contact you if they are interested in interviewing you. The time it takes to hear back varies from organization to organization, so you may wait only a week or 2 weeks. Other times you might wait a couple of months. Then, if they contact you for an interview, you will have the interview. It can be in person, on the phone, or through Skype. After the interview, there will be interview follow-up. This, again, like the contact, varies from organization to organization. Some organizations, IIE for example, even if you don't get the position, they call you to let you know. Other organizations just kind of leave you to figure out that the silence indicates that you were not chosen for the position. I find the silence really frustrating, but it is something that you will likely have to deal with. So just be prepared. Again, the follow-up can take from 2 weeks to a couple of months. So the silence doesn't always mean that you didn't get it, but again, it's always important to apply to many opportunities and not put all of your eggs in one basket waiting for one organization or one company to get back to you. If they do like you, they will follow up with you to either tell you that you got the position or to invite you for more interviews. After that, there will be reference checks, background checks, etc. Then a formal offer will be made, and then after there's the hiring paperwork that can come right after the formal offer or just before you start your internship. So what to bring? You always want to bring your resume. They'll have it on file because you sent it to them, but it's good to have a hard copy. You want the IIE letter of support. You want questions to ask. It's better to memorize these than write them down. And you also want to bring a positive attitude. So how to act? The most important thing you can do, the thing that sets the tone of an interview, is to give a firm handshake. If you do not give the person a firm handshake, they will feel like they are shaking hands with a noodle or with a piece of spaghetti. This will look really bad and start you off on a bad note. You also want to make eye contact, maintain a friendly expression, address the interviewer or interviewers formally using Mr., Miss, Doctor, etc., and their last name until invited to call them by their first name. You want to stay still in your seat, no fidgeting, and you want to maintain good posture. One note about phone and Skype interviews, it's likely that a lot of you will be doing them. But just because you're not interviewing in person does not mean that you do not need to appear as if you are interviewing in person. For Skype interviews, you should be wearing something professional. You should have your hair combed and be sitting up in a chair at a table. For phone interviews, you don't have to wear professional clothing. You can if you want to, but don't do the interview in your pajamas. You should get dressed and sit up in a chair at a table so that you assume the position of someone doing an in-person interview. So, what not to do? This is the webinar recording. In the actual webinar, I had students write in what they thought they shouldn't do in an interview. I got a lot of good answers. I'll just repeat a couple of them. Don't chew gum, don't crack your knuckles, don't use really informal language. You don't want to use language that is very, 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 very formal. Nothing Shakespearean. But again, you want to appear professional. You don't want to wear clothing that's too revealing. For women, it's important, nothing too short, no low-cut necklines, no makeup that is less is more in this case. You don't want to appear tired, or you want to look good and presentable, but no red lipstick, no heavy eyeshadow. Men, you should be well groomed. Beards, In my opinion, you should shave them. It really depends on where you're doing the interview. A bank will be much more formal than, say, an art gallery or maybe a small architecture firm. But just to be on the safe side, you should shave your beards. You don't want to arrive late. You want to give yourself enough time to get to the interview. I always like to arrive places 15 minutes early. You don't know if you're going to have to sign in the lobby and take an elevator up 40 floors. You never know. So you want to give yourself enough time to get situated. You don't want to arrive at the interview nervous or agitated because you were late. Things like this. These are things that you do not want to do. Now we come to the actual interview. As said before, each interview will be different, but you can expect the interviewer to ask questions about you, about your behavioral skills, and about your technical skills. Questions about yourself. It is likely that the opening question will be, can you tell us about yourself? Your answer should be a summary of your academic life and interests. Other questions you will likely be asked are, why are you interested in this position, and why do you want to work with the company or organization? For questions about your behavioral skills, you may be asked to discuss your teamwork skills, leadership roles, and how you handled certain situations in previous experiences. Two very popular questions that are asked at interviews are, tell us about a time when you overcame a challenge. Your answer to this question should focus on a time when you were academically or professionally challenged. And the other question, what are your weaknesses? For this question, you want to give a weakness that is not really a weakness. It's a little bit of a trick question. For example, I tend to ask a lot of questions. You may see that as a weakness, but it's something that it could be a weakness, but it could also be seen as a strength. People usually like employees, staff who ask a lot of questions just to make sure that they know what is going on. Another one that I don't know if you really, this is a very popular one, but I kind of think it's overused, is I'm a perfectionist, I get caught up and I want to make everything perfect. So you don't want to say something like, I go through phases where I'm very, very unproductive and do nothing. That's a weakness that you probably don't want to tell them. So again, a weakness that's a strength disguised as weakness. So, questions about your technical skills. These questions may involve solving a problem, doing computer tests, or giving you a scenario and having you describe how to solve it. So, responding to questions. If you don't understand a question, that's okay. Ask the interviewer to clarify or repeat the question, and if you are still unsure about how to respond to, say, a question that involves solving an equation, you can describe how you would go about solving it, what formulas or techniques you would use to solve it. I think everyone tends to think that you have to have a great answer right away, and this isn't true. You can take some time to think and quickly sort out your thoughts before your answer. You don't want to take too much time. I would say a minute is too much time, but a couple of seconds, 10 seconds is totally fine. It's better to think first and then deliver a clear answer rather than saying something and then starting over and then saying something and starting over. Asking questions. At the end of the interview, you will likely be asked if you have any questions. It is very important to ask questions because it shows that you are interested in the position and the organization. So some questions you can ask are, what is the most challenging part of your job? What do you like most about your job? And other questions that refer to the job description, like the job description states that I will be working with software. Which type of software will I be working with? A little note, before the interview, you can read the job description carefully and write down anything you're confused about and ask it at the end of the interview. This is what I like to do before going on my interviews. The next steps. At the end of the interview, ask about when you should be hearing back from them. You can provide your letter of support to the interviewer if he or she was confused about your J1 status. You should acquire business cards, and you should also send thank you notes. We're going to go further into the thank you notes right here. A thank you note can be emailed or mailed. It doesn't really matter whether you email the note or if you mail a physical little note or card. What matters is that you do it. If you don't send a thank you note, it will look really bad. A thank you note can be something like, "Dear Dr. Smith, thank you for the opportunity to interview for the supply chain intern position at Cargill. After speaking with you, I am even more excited to work with Cargill and look forward to hearing from you. Best, your name." Something that, a nice little trick that a friend actually told me was to have the stationery you're going to use to write the note before the interview, buy it before the interview. And you can address it and stamp it before the interview, and then right after the interview when you leave the building, write the note, find the nearest mailbox and drop it in there so that the person who interviewed you gets it either later that day or the next morning. If you have any questions about interviewing, you can go to your career services office. They do mock interviews and they will give you feedback on the way you interview. You can also send questions to your student relations officer. Good luck, and remember, no noodle handshakes. And we'll see you at the next webinar.